Hi, and welcome to Omni Edition Garden City. I am Dan York, and with me now is Tim Gibbons, the Chief of Police for the City of Garden City. We want to talk about just the police department in general, not really any specific issues, but some of the great things that the police department has done over the last couple of years. Welcome back to this program.
Oh, thanks for having me, Dan.
And for folks who don't know a little bit about your background, you've only been chief for about a year and a half now, right?
About a year and a half, working on two, but I've been a police officer here for about 17 years. Was born in Garden City Hospital, raised in Garden City, attended St. Raphael's, and then Divine Child. So
and your
I'm
legacy
a local guy.
is your uncle,
and my uncle's Dave Harvey,
who was a former chief of police and city manager.
So just got a nice long connection to Garden City.
Okay. So you've done a lot of different things here in the last year and a half. And when we were kind of doing a pre-interview, you referred to quality of life things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of the things that the department has done, and this was a big priority for the city council, was more effort into the area of ordinance enforcement. Talk about that.
That's correct. Yep. For a number of years, the ordinance department was located in DPS. A lot of the issues that they were having came from the enforcement side. So when it was known that I was going to become chief, one of the things I requested was, hey, why don't you move ordinance over to the police department? One of my big philosophies in policing is just overall quality of life. When the police department's responsibility is to enforce the law in a manner that makes citizens' lives a little better. And one of those things is ordinance enforcement. Abandoned cars, tall grass, burnt out buildings, anything like that, we should be having our hand in on the enforcement side of things. That's what we do, law enforcement.
And I think that's one of the reasons that it had fallen under DPS is because most of it was just high grass.
Yes.
And if the thought was DPS is going to be the ones who are going to have to cut it,
yep.
So that's how it ended up there.
Yep, and there was a logical reason to do that there. And then they maintained a decent level of service as part of DPS. It's just when you take into account all my philosophy going forward, in order to work together with the police department, DPS being under the police umbrella really fits. And then we can really help with the enforcement side of it. So, so we've had them over there since I think it's January of 18. And things have been going pretty well. We've hired 2 part-time ordinance officers and an ordinance clerk. Prior to that, when you called DPS, you'd leave a message to the ordinance officer who was also responding to complaints and following up on it.
He was the only
and
employee
going to court. And he was the only employee of the department. Now, when you call, you'll get a clerk. She'll give you advice if need be, because she's well versed in the ordinances and laws, and see if we can resolve the problem that way. Or if you need an ordinance officer out, she'll get them out to you. And then we pretty thoroughly document our enforcement activities.
Sure. And one of the things that's really exploded is something on the website called GFC Fix It.
Yes.
And there's probably not a day that goes by that there isn't some sort of I'll call it a complaint, but something that comes in over GC Fix It is where people can go in and say, my neighbor has high grass, or the guy up the street has high grass, or the place is falling down, or whatever that you see, and it allows you to report that to the city, and it just gives the ordinance department the ability now to go out and look for themselves.
Yes, it's a great way to communicate with us. You can reduce your issue down to writing, where you'd like to see us, and respond. And it makes it very easy for us, because now we've got basically an emailed complaint to us that we can take and document and follow up on. And so it's a great, easy way for people to report those things. You never know when the right time maybe to call is, and if some people are hesitant, they can just jump on GC Fix It and,
right.
and
you
report
can do
it
it
that
anonymously
way.
if you really want to.
And anonymous is an option as well. So what we just want to know is where are the citizens wanting our services, and this is yet another way for us to deliver those services. It works great.
And one of those areas we talk about that is traffic enforcement.
Correct.
When things were lean during the 2008 to say 2014 period of time, that sort of stuff didn't necessarily get the attention that it needed, but you've been able to, with the money you have in your budget now, to be able to really restore those services.
Correct. Yep. In 2009 to 14, we, like every municipality around us, had to reduce our services and just go down to core essential services. And that's one of the things the millage was passed for, is just to maintain those core essential services. And with it, we can continue to do that. But now that we've had those services running again, and we've got that core-based level of service, anywhere we can place an officer, whether he's out in a narcotics unit or in traffic, that kind of funds itself based on their enforcement activity, that's what we're doing. And traffic is one of those areas. And then we come back to quality of life. So if we're a quality of life police department, one of the things that reduces your quality of life is traffic, car accidents and congestion and those type of issues. Just like ordinance, you want the house next door not to have an abandoned car in front of it or tall grass and attract rodents. Those things all negatively affect your quality of life. So does traffic. So now, starting this budget year, we're going to have a traffic officer. He's going to be out there enforcing traffic. His method is, this isn't revenue generating, this isn't anything like that. I know people bring that up. But really, his activity is just to go where residents or the accidents and crashes are.
Sure.
We've taken it's a philosophy, and it's a national philosophy of law enforcement, is to go where there's high crime and traffic accidents, areas where you have both. And if you enforce traffic where your higher crime areas are, what you see is both crashes reduced and crime reduced.
Because of the police
Because
presence.
of the high visibility police presence. You'll see marked police cars with lights on top of their cars. We're not trying to hide from anybody. They're just going to be out in the open. You'll see the police. They'll probably be enforcing traffic while they're out there. If they see someone run a red light, they're going to pull them over, and they're going to decide if they need a ticket or not. But one of the great secondary benefits of that is when you see a police officer, you're much less likely to commit a crime. So we're trying to have a much higher visible presence.
Sure.
And because we have our core services established, our response times are still pretty good, and we're doing all of those things. In fact, I'd say they're really good. Our average response time to any incident is 6 minutes. If it's an emergency, it's around 2. Not a lot of communities can boast that. I think Garden City's one that can. But now that we've got that our core services shored up, we can start doing these extra things. And traffic enforcement is one of them. And we're seeing some success. And there's speeders on residential streets, and now I have an officer to dedicate to that. I know we had a lot of complaints at Marquette and Henry Ruff. I know we'll still continue to get some, but because we can't be there all the time. But we've placed that officer there quite a bit, and he's written quite a few tickets. In fact, one anecdote was one of the residents that was upset about the speeding was pulled over. But she expressed thanks that, hey, listen, I'm the one that brought you here, and I'm glad you responded to my complaint. And we're going to continue to do that. Also, he evaluated the area, and we determined with a resident suggestion that we put some extra speed limit signs up there, just so that there's a change there where the median collapses into just the street. There's a change in traffic, it appears. So just to be clear that the speed limit stays the same there. It's solving problems like that that we're out to do.
Well, and you mentioned residential streets, but one of the things people probably forget, that as small as Garden City is, tens of thousands of cars go through Ford and Middlebelt, Ford and Merriman every day. It is actually a very high traffic area and a highly traveled intersection, and it's important to keep people, because they come out of Dearborn Heights where the road's a little wider, the speed limit's a little higher.
Correct.
They get into Westland and it picks up again, but Garden City, the speed limit's a little slower because the buildings are so close to the curb and they're so close to the road itself. So it's an opportunity there to try to keep people at a safe speed.
Absolutely. With Ford Road and Middlebelt and Merriman, we have some of the highest traveled intersections in the state. So I like the idea that, one, we're there managing that. So when you're coming home from work and all that traffic is backed up, you can get home a little faster if we can keep traffic moving with traffic enforcement. And I like people who come through Garden City to see a Garden City police officer in the area, so they know Garden City is a well-policed city. High visibility is a real important thing. So now we're actually able to start doing those things, and I think that helps reduce crime. And in the last few years, we've saw quite a downtick in property-related crimes, which is the ones I think we most affect when we have a high visible presence.
Well, and that kind of dovetails into something else we talked about before we started, the way you apply data into fighting crime.
Absolutely.
The same way you can use data in traffic patrolling
Yes.
based on the information you have, you can do the same thing with crimes.
Yes, correct. Every Monday morning I sit down with my command staff and we go over specifically 3 quality of life issues related crimes. I think home invasions, burglaries, those are the same, home invasions, burglary, same category. Larceny from autos, and the motor vehicle thefts. Those 3 categories are what we really focus on reducing, because we feel like we can have the most impact on those. So like in November into December and January of 18 and going into 19, we had a lot of home invasions on the West End. We tracked the activity. We determined that that's where the activity is most likely. We deployed officers out there. We ended up developing a suspect, making an arrest, and getting a confession to numerous home invasions, and that really dropped our numbers there. It was one person causing the problem. Same thing with larceny from autos. We recognized a pattern in a certain area. We put officers out there. We made them know that this is where it is, so if we get calls, we have to get there even quicker. We did so, and we ended up arresting 2 separate individuals for larcenies, and we went from around 15 or 16 reported for the month, and in July we only had 4. But we have to constantly monitor it. You know, we can't control when someone pops up and decides to start doing these things, but we can identify patterns and use our resources to stop it as soon as we can. And that's where we use data. And you combine that with knowing where traffic crashes are, and you combine that with knowing where crime is, I better now know where to place officers. And because the city well funds its police department, I have officers to put there.
Yeah.
So.
And you know, it's funny because we look back, I'm a lot older than you are, and then I saw guys that were older than I was when I started, and they didn't have these tools.
No.
Yet they still did a great job
They did.
keeping the city safe and policing the community. And then you look at the tools you have, and it is amazing how well our police department and other local police departments did prior to this kind of data information and what you can do with a computer and what you can find. But now this information is really right at your fingertips.
Yeah, what used to take someone putting, going through each report tediously, putting out pins, and then writing down times and having to look at a whole different report, I can pretty much just almost Google through our system the crime I'm looking for, and I can find dates, times, locations, and then tell the officers where those are. And what I got a great command staff who does a good job of adapting to what's going on in the city.
Well, and if you don't have to have a guy doing that, that means there's more boots on the ground.
Absolutely.
Doing actual on the street police work.
Yep, it's all about keeping those people out there. Just same concept with why we needed an ordinance clerk, is to keep ordinance officers doing enforcement and the clerking inside, so they don't have to. Well, now this software gives us the ability to take an officer who would be putting pins on a map, and now that data is already automatically collected when we write a report, and then it's just produced in a document to us. What would take hours now takes seconds. So it's definitely made us more efficient, and it's the importance of keeping up with the times.
Now, one of the other things you've done in the last year and a half, 2 years, is extend the relationship of the police department into the community.
Correct.
Through the development of a community resources officer's position.
Yep.
Talk about that.
The community resource officer's position is something that myself and in conjunction with Officer now Sergeant Shippey have put together based on a lot of things we saw that were things where we can improve on. We've always had a great relationship with the community, but we need to expand on that because they're a resource for us, and we are, of course, a resource for them. And I want to make sure people feel connected to their police department and have a trust in their police department by knowing the faces and knowing why we do what we do and going out there and communicating that. I think that makes them more willing to call us and tell us about things. The other benefit for us is just like data collection from crime mapping. Data collection also comes from people telling us, hey, this is going on here. Some things don't make it into a police report. Some things don't make it into a phone call to the police department. And if we're out there finding those things out, we can take our Google of a crime and also say, yeah, and also this citizen said this guy's out late at night walking around. Don't know what he's up to, but that's something you guys want to be aware of. So when we have a cop on the block, which is one of our events where we go into a particular part of the community and are just present and interact with the citizens on just sort of a non-enforcement basis, they tell us these type of things. They can tell us which stop sign's getting run too much and where the speeders are. So it's a tremendous value for us as far as data collection, but also building that relationship so we get more information from them. One of the things is like when we were having a lot of larceny from autos, we were getting so many reported, but there were probably more out there that people just didn't bother to call. One, probably because maybe they didn't think it was important enough, but two, maybe they just didn't, sometimes it's uncomfortable communicating with the police. I realize that, sometimes your only reaction is you get pulled over by them. Right. And that's not a positive experience. But if maybe you met some cops at the cop on the block, and now you feel a little more comfortable, maybe you're a little more willing to call and tell me, your car got rustled through last night, because I use that data. And so do all my officers in determining where we're going to be.
Yeah, even if they only got the change out of your counsel there, it's
or
important
just left
that
your car door open.
It's important the cops know because this could be a pattern.
Yep, we want to know so we can address it. And if we don't know, it just hinders us a little bit if we have to go find the information, as opposed to if someone calls and tells us. That's just another piece of information that helps us decide where we're going to go and what we're going to do.
And also one of those things that was developed before you got here, but continue to use, is people can actually do a police report online for something like that where they don't think it's important enough for the cops to come out or for you to go to the police department itself, but you can simply report these sort of things that really are only going to result in data collection, probably.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what we would get out of it. But that's exactly what we need to get out of it. You could go online and quickly fill out a online police report. It would get submitted. We would see it. It would become one of our statistics. and a little data point that helps us decide where we're going to deploy our resources.
And one of the things, too, from Cop on the Block that seems to be a benefit to me, because I've been to 3 or 4 of them myself, is Bruce is out there with Rudy, which is the canine.
Yes.
And Drinker's out there with the drone and doing everything. But kids.
Yes.
I mean, kids can get the wrong impression of the police department very early from television, from video games, or just negative experiences.
Right.
And they need to know that these guys are safe, that this is who you should be going to when you have a problem, that you should not fear the police department.
That's correct. We really want children in our community to feel that if they see a police officer and they need us, they feel safe enough to come up to us and communicate with us. I've said this before. One of my pet peeves always when I was a patrolman is if I go into a restaurant or a business and there was a child with their parents, they'd say, "Hey, you better behave or the police are going to arrest you." And I'd always be like, "No, we're not. No, we're not. No, that's not why we're here. We want the children to think, oh, the police are here, thank goodness. Not, I better, not go near them, or we want the kids should feel like, hey, those are my police officers, and they'll take care of me if need be. That's another benefit of having the outreach we do. Having the kids come and sit in our police cars and flip the lights and sirens on for a second, seeing what the back of a police car, meeting Rudy is making people feel comfortable, seeing our smiling officers, because our guys are really good guys and girls, and they come to work every day with a pretty positive attitude, and they like being in the community, and people should know that. If you run a red light and we're having a contact with you, it's easy then to, if someone's writing you a ticket, to have maybe a negative connotation of the incident, maybe the person writing it to you, because it's not fun. But there's another side to that. When we're in the community, and we're there to serve, you should feel comfortable with us, and especially kids.
And another thing that you've done to enhance the profile of the police and the relationship between the police and the general public are the Citizens Police Academies, which you had one a couple of months ago that was a huge success.
Correct. Yep. And that's another. We're just kind of build on making citizens feel like they're part of our police department. That we're only as good as our citizens, and those that want to know more about the police department, those that want to help out, or just generally have a better idea of how and why it works, and that helps you when you're making informed decisions. If you know how a place works and what its purpose and its mission are, this is an opportunity to get. We had 10 citizens who came in and spent their time each Tuesday night for a couple hours a night, sometimes longer because they wanted to learn more, finding out why we patrol the way we patrol, how our budget works, how criminal investigations are done, how drunk driving arrests are done. They've been nothing but an amazing group even since they've graduated from our Citizens Academy, and they all reported a very positive experience. But now they're going to be helping out at the Bacon Run because they want to be involved in their community, and now we've sort of given them a little more knowledge on how and where to help. They're helping out with the Bacon Run. We're asking them to help us with active shooter simulation. We need some role players there, and that's a huge resource for us, and it's a great benefit. And it gives them an opportunity to do what they want, which is be part of helping their community and their police department.
Neat. Other things that are kind of similar to that as far as reaching out to the community. Bruce Shippey has done a bike rodeo 2 years in a row now.
Yes. Tremendous success there. The kids really love it, and it's an opportunity for us to get some of these bicycles registered. You can come and have your bicycle registered, and we can talk to kids about bike safety, which concerns all parents when you send them out there. Hopefully wearing a helmet, riding up and down the streets, that the officers can give them a little bit of instruction and a little fun on how to operate that bicycle safely. As a father myself, it always makes you nervous when they go out there and go up and down the streets. I like when maybe a police officer helps instruct them how to be safe, not just dad. Just another great event. And then, in October we have the chili cook-off. We're going to have our open house on the same day as we did last year, where people can come and just see the inner workings of the police department and eat some popcorn and just kind of see how we run from the inside.
And that's a neat day for the whole community because you can go from the fire department open house to the police open house to the chili cook-off, all in walking distance and all on the same day.
Yep, and if you don't feel like walking, usually
the hayride
get you over on the hayride. So it's really conducive to a great day. It's usually the weather's nice in the fall. So it's a good temperature for milling about here downtown Garden City, and the police department really appreciates all the people that come through.
And again, just talking about the interaction that the police department has, you guys last year or 2 years ago started a great program when we went through a very hot spell of simply carrying water in the back of your patrol cars to give to residents, the people in the park, or kids that look like they need some water, some hydration.
Yeah, one of those things, we had some really hot days both last year and the year before and then this year, and we open up cooling centers to help people. But, usually you don't realize you're too hot till you're too hot. And with our officers driving around, having water available in their cars, it gives, one, a great opportunity for the officer to look out for a citizen who might be suffering under the conditions of the heat. Might not even know it. But two, also an interaction. Hey, listen, are you okay? How you doing? Have a bottle of water, get them refreshed, and they get a little something, and gives the officer an opportunity to interact with the community. If we're going to open cooling centers, clearly we're concerned about our citizens overheating. So since we're driving around the city, if we see something, we can help out with just giving them a nice cold beverage.
And when it comes to hot beverages, you've done coffee with a canine.
Yep, on the other side of that, we have coffee with a canine. So whether it's winter or summer, we're trying to use beverages to reach out to people. But yeah, that's with Officer Shippey puts coffee with a canine on. So when it's too cold for coffee, for a cop on the block, we'll go into either a business like Garden City Cafe or the Straight Farmhouse, and just invite the citizens to come in and find out what's going on at the police department. Typically, we'll tell you with some stats, how the community's doing lately from crime and accidents, and then some other events, and then basically the best part, which always takes the longest, is just questions. People have questions about the law. People have questions about how we operate. People tell us, hey, listen, could you please be over in this part of my neighborhood? We love that stuff. This is exactly what we're looking for, is to find out where you want us. That's where we should be.
Yeah, and as nice as social media can be, it sometimes goes off the rails.
Yeah.
And it's nice to have a face to put to something and get a definitive answer and something clear from someone in authority and someone that really knows what they're talking about.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, you should hear it from the horse's mouth. Social media is a wonderful thing for spreading information, and we use it to promote things and to say things that need to be said within the community. But there's a negative side too, that people can run a little rampant and some untruths get put out there. So it's important for us, especially in the day and age of social media, is to be in our community and present and able to answer their questions. We can't respond on social media to specific questions, but if you want to come to our Cop on the Block or Coffee with a Canine, or if you want to say something through GC Fix It and be contacted specifically, we'd be glad to do it. We're never hiding the ball. We want to share the information that the public needs, that we can provide, so they know what's going on in their community. It's important not just to be in a safe community, but also feel like you're in a safe community. And if you have something that challenges that, you should ask your local police department, us, hey, what's going on with this? And we're glad to answer. We want people to know. We're quite proud of the work we're doing, and we're glad to share it.
And another way where technology, where something that didn't exist 10 years ago has come into play, you're putting together a registry of residents that have video doorbells, that have home surveillance systems. So
Yep.
in the event of a crime happening, you can go to them and ask them, maybe they have video of the crime or the person running away or some way to help solve a crime.
Yep, yet another data collection. Just like crime mapping and just like being in the community and being told, the video information program, the VIP program, allows residents to register and say, hey, I've got a Ring doorbell or any type of outdoor camera. And last night, a guy tried my door or something like that. And maybe it didn't even amount to a crime, but maybe it just helps us solve a series of other ones. When we were having the home invasions, quite a few times the guy we were looking for was captured crossing through yards on Ring doorbells, and it provided a wonderful assistance at kind of isolating. We used that data to figure out where he was coming from. Since they're out there and since people have the data, if they want to share it with us, that makes our job all the more easier and more successful. It's again about getting out in the community and getting them to work with us, just as we want to work with them to solve their problems and keep Garden City a great place to live.
We've had incidents over the last several months, bad incidents in other parts of the country of active shooters, of mass shootings of gunmen, and it's become a new reality. Whatever the reason for it is, it's become a new reality. And one of the things that you folks want to do is give training to groups or individuals that are interested in learning what to do in those situations.
Yes, it's a program called ALICE. It stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. Okay. You could say an acronym so many times you forget why. But that's what it is a method to respond to active shooters and help mitigate any injury or loss of life. Championed by Sergeant Palacio and Officer Daniels, they've been going to our schools, our churches, and our businesses, teaching large groups where there's large gatherings of Garden City citizens, particularly the schools, and teaching them this method of responding to an incident of an active shooter. We can't be there right when the incident goes, typically. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. And our response time is excellent. But there's still that gap from us getting there at the time, and that we can't overcome. So what we can do is prepare our citizens that when something bad like that happens, that they know how to respond, and that they can make the bad situation as good as it can be. And credit to our school superintendent, Fisher. He's also become an ALICE instructor in this, and he's
a former cop.
He's a former cop, and he and Sergeant Palacio and Daniels have been teaching it all across the school district, and to a lot of the teachers and administrators. And I feel, based on their actions, you never want it to happen, but we're preparing as best we can for such an incident, and we're preparing our citizens. And that's a philosophy. We know we can't be everywhere all the time. So and another thing is the RAD program, Rape, Aggression, and Defense. Officer Lewis and Officer Jackson have both sent to an instruction to become instructors in assisting citizens if they're being assaulted, how to defend themselves. We've been putting on a couple classes of that. We're planning to do more as the demand increases. But it's just about preparing our citizens that when we're not there, what they can do to protect themselves.
Yeah. Well, so some very good information from you and what's going on at the Garden City Police Department. It's a lot more than just reacting to things. It's trying to address things before they happen.
Correct. Yeah, we're just trying to be proactive where we can. Whether it's high visibility enforcement or it's ALICE training. Of course, we're always going to respond to crimes, and we're always going to prioritize violent crimes over property crimes. But there's areas we can make improvements by changing the way we do things and adjusting them to technological developments or new good ideas. So anytime those come along, like some of the ones you've seen, we're going to adopt them or we're going to push them through. Garden City's always had a great police department. I follow in the footsteps of some really good chiefs and really good officers. And I'm just building on what they've left us. And as times change, we change with them for the good. And we're trying our best to earn the continued appreciation of the citizens.
All right. Well, good luck with what you're doing, and
we'll
talk to you here soon.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
All right. That's Omni Edition Garden City for today. Thanks very much for watching. Good night, everybody.